Hi, everybody. The Caucasus Mountains have always been a land of mystery, a rugged frontier where empires clashed, warriors rose, and faiths were tested. But today, Dagestan is no longer just a distant republic on Russia's southern edge. It has become a stage where history and destiny collide, where the spirit of Islam burns brighter than ever before. Every dawn, as the sun rises over the jagged peaks, the air vibrates with the adhan, the Islamic call to prayer. It rolls down the slopes, sweeps through the valleys, and fills the streets of Makhachkala, Derbent, and countless mountain villages. The sound is not just an echo of tradition. It is the pulse of a movement that refuses to be silenced. In recent years, Dagestan has transformed from a place known only to scholars of history into a symbol recognized across the Muslim world. Once marginalized and seen as remote, it now commands the attention of Russia and beyond. The streets that once carried whispers of old wars now thunder with chants of Allahu Akbar, as masses gather in mosques too small to contain the crowds pressing at their doors. The energy is palpable. Markets bustle with the rhythm of a community united by faith. Families teach their children the Quran as naturally as breathing. Young people, once drawn to the glitter of Moscow, now find pride in embracing the spiritual roots of their ancestors. For them, Dagestan is not a forgotten corner of Russia, it is the front line of a spiritual renaissance. Observers call it the awakening of the Caucasus. For the people living here, it feels like destiny finally claiming its rightful place. Dagestan is no longer just geography. It is prophecy in motion, a living reminder that faith can rise from the mountains and shake the foundations of an empire. What began as whispers has now grown into a roar. Across Russia, from the steel-gray streets of Moscow to the frozen plains of Siberia, a movement is surging, one that no authority, no ideology, and no barrier has been able to contain.
Millions of Russian citizens, disillusioned with materialism and thirsty for meaning, are streaming toward Islam, and for many, their journey leads to one place, Dagestan.
Here, the transformation is visible in every corner. In small mountain villages, elderly Russians arrive with trembling voices to recite the Shahada, their eyes wet with tears as they embrace a faith they say feels like coming home. In bustling city mosques, young professionals shed their old identities, bowing their heads in submission to a God they feel they have searched for all their lives. The numbers are staggering. Day after day, mosques overflow. New Islamic centers are rising at a pace unseen in Russia's modern history. Witnesses speak of mass gatherings where hundreds take the oath of faith in a single night. What once seemed unthinkable is now undeniable. Islam is not a fringe belief in Russia. It is becoming a force that reshapes the very soul of the nation. And at the heart of this tide stands Dagestan. No longer just a republic, but a sanctuary, a magnet pulling in those who yearn for a life of faith and community. The republic's rugged mountains have become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that Islam here is not just surviving, it is conquering hearts at a scale that shocks the world. Dagestan's story is not a new one. It is the revival of a legacy written in blood, stone, and faith. More than 1,300 years ago, Arab missionaries and warriors climbed the same mountains that tower over the Republic today. They carried not swords of conquest, but the message of Tawheed, of one God. Their words echoed in the valleys, and slowly Islam took root in the soil of Dagestan, deeper than any empire's flag could ever be planted. For centuries, Dagestan became a fortress of Islam in the Caucasus. Its scholars produced works that spread far beyond the region. Its warriors resisted invaders with faith as their armor. The names of legendary imams, men like Imam Shamil, who defied the mighty Russian Empire in the 19th century, still inspire awe. Their stories retold in every household as proof that Dagestani Islam was unbreakable. But history is not just memory here. It is alive. The streets of Derbent, one of the oldest cities in Russia, still carry the marks of ancient mosques and walls built to protect the faith. The chants of Quranic recitations in its madrasas today feel like a direct continuation of those that rang out centuries ago. And now, in the 21st century, that history surges back with unstoppable force. The new wave of conversions sweeping Russia is not seen as something modern, but as a prophecy fulfilled, a return to the path carved by the forefathers of Dagestan. For every Russian who takes the Shahada, for every child learning the Quran, the people of Dagestan whisper a single truth. Islam never left us. It was waiting for this moment to rise again. Why Dagestan? Why here, in this small republic tucked between mountains and the Caspian Sea, has Islam become so irresistible? The answer lies not in politics or economics, but in the atmosphere. The living, breathing rhythm of faith that saturates daily life. Walk through the capital city, Makhachkala, and you will see it immediately. The markets alive with honesty, where merchants close their shops at prayer time without hesitation. The streets filled with women proudly wearing the hijab. The laughter of children reciting Quranic verses as they rush to evening classes. In Dagestan, Islam is not a private affair. It is the heartbeat of society.
For newcomers, especially Russian converts arriving from distant cities, the contrast is overwhelming. They step into a world where faith is not hidden, but celebrated, where mosques dominate skylines instead of fading into the background. Many describe their first visit as a revelation. I finally feel at home, they say, as though Dagestan itself embraces them with unseen arms. Even the youth, often considered the easiest prey of modern temptations, stand tall in their devotion. Social media buzzes with Dagestani voices, preaching unity, sharing Quranic wisdom, and inspiring Muslims across Russia. The mountains that once shielded warriors now shelter a new generation of believers, fearless in their identity. And so, Dagestan becomes more than just a republic. It is a sanctuary, a beacon, a spiritual magnet pulling hearts from every corner of Russia. Those who arrive here do not just change their address, they change their destiny. The question is no longer if Islam will shape Russia's future, it is how soon. What began in whispers among small groups has erupted into a nationwide tide, and at its core stands Dagestan, the unshakable heart of this awakening. Analysts warn that the surge of conversions could transform Russia's cultural and spiritual identity within a generation.
Political leaders in Moscow watch with unease as Islam's influence grows, yet even they cannot deny the sheer power of the movement. Faith is not a law that can be suppressed, nor a protest that can be silenced. It is a fire, and in Dagestan, that fire burns brighter every day. Already, new Islamic universities are rising, scholars are emerging, and communities are expanding at unprecedented speed. The mosque, once a symbol of heritage, has become the epicenter of a new national reality. And with each shahada spoken, the future takes shape, not in secret, but in the open, with millions bearing witness. For Russia, Dagestan is no longer a periphery. It is a prophecy fulfilled, a gateway not just for Islam into Russia, but for Russia into Islam. The mountains that once guarded the faith now send it cascading like a river across the land, unstoppable and undeniable. History will remember this moment, and when it does, it will speak of Dagestan not as a distant republic, but as the place where an empire rediscovered its soul. What began as a local awakening has now crossed borders, echoing far beyond Russia's mountains and valleys. Headlines from Istanbul to Jakarta, from Cairo to London, are carrying one explosive story. Millions of Russians embrace Islam, Dagestan at the center of a spiritual revolution. International observers arrive in flocks, cameras capturing the overflowing mosques, the long lines of new believers waiting to declare their faith, the vibrant streets alive with Islamic culture. To the outside world, Dagestan is no longer an obscure republic. It is the epicenter of a global narrative that shocks and inspires in equal measure. For the Muslim world, Dagestan has become a source of pride, a reminder that Islam continues to expand in the most unexpected of places. Leaders speak of a new frontier for Dawah, while communities abroad raise their hands in prayer for the brothers and sisters in Russia. But for the West, however, the story is unsettling. Commentators debate whether this marks the decline of Russia's traditional identity or the birth of a new one entirely. Some warn of Islamization. Others admit great respect for the resilience of a faith that centuries of wars, oppression, and atheism could not destroy. Yet for the people of Dagestan, none of this noise matters. Their mountains stand tall, their mosques stand full, and their hearts stand firm. They are not chasing headlines, they are living history. And as the world watches, one truth becomes undeniable. The future of Islam in Russia has already begun, and it began here, in Dagestan.